What is going on, everybody? Hope you were excited. We are going to have an excellent show for you guys tonight. There's a lot of really bad news. I wish I could sit here and say there's good news, but we are living under the Trump administration where, unfortunately, every day we encounter more and more bad news. So we will cover most of that. This kind of usually I have a rhyme and rhythm and how I get these things going. As you guys come in here, please make sure you hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. That's going to get us further in the algorithm. But we're going to cover quite a bit of news today. Obviously, we cover everything from the weekend onward. Y'all will see that I put up my first pre-recorded video. If you want to go and drop a like on that video as well, that would be great. I was explaining a little bit more behind what we will talk about eventually today. I think I've decided that I noticed that a lot of people that come in here and watch shorts tend to watch only my shorts. And then those who come in here through the pre-recorded videos tend to only watch the pre-recorded videos. So what I would suggest is I'm probably just going to continue to do daily news coverage starting probably next week, where I record a video, I upload it. It was actually incredibly easy to do. But anyways, guys, nonetheless, I don't want to bore you. Let's jump straight into the news. Let's go and do, oh, I didn't have this up saved. Okay, see, I thought I was super prepared. Turns out I super wasn't. Let's go ahead and get this pulled up. There we go. And then I got to pull this one up here. Whoopsies. Not prepared like I should have been. Okay. So first and foremost, we have the measure of the alpha males. The alpha males were going nuts. Why? Because Mamdani couldn't even do like 135-pound bench press. And so all of Fox News was complaining about how they couldn't do a 135-pound bench press. By the way, welcome in Spartacus, welcome in Devious Chris, welcome back. I appreciate you guys coming in here. Welcome in Shep. So we have here, and just so anybody who's new here and you wonder why I'm not responding to chat, typically the way that I engage in my chat is that I usually try to pre-record, I usually record a segment during this stream. So then what I'll do is not generally respond to chat during that segment. During this one, we're going to cover it's backwards. We're going to cover a lot of the one-off news segments first, and then we're going to get into some of the more heavier, dense topics as we go on. So I digress. Let's go on with this. So Waters said, you know who doesn't film themselves at the gym? Men. Women film themselves working out. That's who does it. This was from August 22nd. But then you can see here, Jesse Water. You can see that Pete Hegseth and RFK Jr., I don't know if you guys can see that, we're doing a bunch of push-ups and things of that nature. Why is my audio not coming through the right thing? There we go. You can see them doing these big old push-ups and all the pull-ups and everything else. And these are just terrible pull-ups, by the way. And this form, by the way, is atrocious. But anyways, I thought it was hilarious that Jesse Waters sat there and said only women film themselves at the gym, yet you've seen how these two do it. And again, they're terrible form. Terrible form. We also had Fox News asking Lee Zeldin, who is, I believe, the EPA chief, saying, what's the problem with the wind farm in Rhode Island? For background on this, the wind farm in Rhode Island got scrapped because Donald Trump just doesn't like windmills. It was on track for completion. And because of Donald Trump, they just nixed it completely. A complete waste. And you can see Zeldin saying the president is not a fan of wind. This project is largely almost finished. You got AI, the electrification of everything around us. Why would you take any power offline? And this is just because, and again, this is why the thumbnail is so fitting. This administration does not work around their own expertise. And this is a criticism I'm starting to come more in line with. This administration cares more about pleasing Donald Trump than they do about their own opinion. Now, I want to be clear. I don't believe Lee Zeldin has any qualifications to really, quite frankly, lead the EPA. But again, this is the problem, right? Is that I want you to remember who Donald Trump has positioned in his cabinets. They're all of his donors. They're all of his wealthy friends. These are businessmen. They're nobody that this Lee Zeldin guy, if I'm not mistaken, I can take a look at this, but I don't believe Lee Zeldin has any EPA background. Let me see his background here. I want to make sure of this. An American attorney, politician, and former Army intelligence officer. Heading the EPA. He has no expertise opinion. There's no expertise opinion here to be had at all. And so again, when you align sycophants, the sycophants are going to do whatever they can to please you. And then we saw this. Jim Jordan on Ghislaine Maxwell transcript. This confirms what we all knew. President Trump didn't do anything wrong. This transcript confirms that there's nothing there based on this interview with Maxwell. And again, they're trying to say, look, guys, we don't need to investigate any further, even though Ghislaine Maxwell got a beautiful sweetheart deal by going down to Texas and going to a low security prison. And then we have here a rare take from Laura Loomer that, again, she is a terrible person in the way that she handles herself, but a clock is always right twice, right? So she said, I don't know about you, but I think it's hilarious how we in MAGA trust the word of Ghislaine Maxwell more than we trust the word of Pam Bondi. It goes to show you how unfavorable Bondi really is. The only person who thinks she's doing a great job is our favorite president. And again, it is hysterical to me because, yes, they are trusting now the word of Ghislaine Maxwell over Pam Bondi. So anyways, rare take. Nothing crazy, but this is an interesting one. Here's Trump only 10 years ago dodging a question about Epstein. I just want you guys to listen to this because I find it fascinating just how much his cognitive abilities have absolutely declined, right? So if you go here, listen to this.
There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew. He'll tell you about it. The island was an absolute cesspool. So,
the Clintons are friends
and he's
of
been
yours,
there
right?
for many times.
The Clintons are friends
well,
of
I
yours.
can't say friends, but I know
You're friendly. You know them.
They play at my clubs a lot. I have clubs, and everybody likes to play
Are you
at my
saying
clubs.
there's a political problem for her if she runs for president?
It could be a political problem. Look, he could be a political.
It's amazing to me just how in short 10 years, Donald Trump is unable to coherently form a sentence and completely rambles on. 10 years ago, he was able to actually speak, and which is crazy because we sat here and we're like, back then we were like, man, this is pretty weird. He doesn't know how to really form anything. No, it's bad now, guys. Like we're long beyond this. We also saw where Fox News was talking about inside out elements. People are not interested in these woke ideologies. Again, the whole woke thing that isn't really in existence, quite frankly, anymore. Saying, especially men who are watching these movies, you have to get back some testosterone. They're so obsessed with the alpha male ideology, the red pill movement. And you can see Mike Nellis saying both Inside Out movies grossed around $1 billion. It's a massively successful franchise. These people are ridiculous losers. This one is great. So Alina Habba, she was told by a judge that she is not authorized to be being her seat, basically. And she said, I was, according to them, unqualified. I arrested a congresswoman for a charge of assaulting a peace officer. And you know what? I stand by my work. And as you can see, I put a comment down here. So your qualification is that you kiss Trump's ring and do his bidding to intimidate his political opponents. See, again, she thinks she did a good job. She was qualified because of an action that she took. Qualifications are not because of the actions you took. Rather, qualifications are, what are your educations? What are your expertise? How long have you been in this position to be able to do this? If you look at Alina Habba's track record, it's not very clean. You can see, I believe she did not practice any kind of public law, I believe is what it was. She doesn't have a very strong background. She's wholly unqualified for this position, but was put in this position for the reason that she just labeled, to go after Trump's political opponents. And you can see here, Alina Habba saying, what they don't understand is Article 3 judges do not pick the U.S. attorney for the state. The president, Pam Bondi, that's who picks it. They had a collusion, a plan. I'm aware of it. The DOJ is aware of it. And soon enough, it'll come out. Again, I want you guys to focus on what's going on right here. Focus on this. Every single time they disagree with the judges, they go to the DOJ for what? They go to the DOJ for investigations. Every single time they are displeased with some kind of a ruling, they want to go after their political opponents. But that's not all. She said the president was rightfully voted in by a majority of Americans. This is a lie. If you look at Donald Trump, he was voted in with 75 million votes. The voting population in the United States is 100. You can see I put it right here. The voting population in the United States is 174 million, meaning he only won at best 44% of the voting population. But that's not what she said. She said by a majority of Americans, the American population is well up above 300 million people, which means he would have won significantly less. So she's just flat out lying here, again, to appease dear leader Donald Trump. And then we had Nancy Mace say that she was going to deliver a speech to more than 100 people Thursday, but reportedly was canceled. Only 8 people showed up. And I think Adam Schiff, who I was critical of at one point in time, nails it on the head. Mortgage is their new weapon to go after the critics. The common denominator is they will manufacture anything to go after the critics. It's free reign and the corrupt leadership at the Justice Department. What they're looking for, and what this is in reference to, was the federal board governor, I believe Lisa Collins, I forgot her last name. She was essentially kicked off because they thought she committed mortgage fraud. What it was essentially, she said that there was going to be a primary residence, and she ended up listing it as a rental shortly thereafter, but I believe she took that down. So again, it's a very loosely framed wording of mortgage fraud. It's the same reason why then they look for denaturalization of U.S. citizens, or naturalized citizens, rather. They look for the typographical error, a comma where there should be a period, something that is wholly immaterial. But because it's a minor infraction, they look at it and say that's material enough for us to kick them off the board. And the funny thing is, you have DC Drano here saying the new DEI definitions didn't earn it. Sounds like Trump. Definitely expecting incompetence. Well, we can think about all the incompetent figures in this administration. Don't expect intelligence. I think that about sums up the Trump administration. Democrat employment insurance, more like Republican employment insurance. Destroying every institution, almost like Donald Trump is doing to this very moment. He has absolutely stripped away several of our different agencies. So definitely destroying institutions. Destroying excellence instantly. That's Donald Trump, right? We had a very strong American presence on the world stage, and Donald Trump has absolutely stripped that away. Delivering empty idiocy. I think that, again, sums up the Trump administration. Delegating employment illogically. And then last of all, dumb, entitled, incompetent. And again, as Kay down here says, got it. So the Trump's entire administration, DEI, is just what they're saying to fire anyone that might oppose him when he doesn't give up power. And this is exactly what they do. They label it DEI anytime someone in this administration does not want to give up their power. And then we saw the gym teacher and the English teacher getting engaged. For anyone who's unaware of that reference, these are the Swifties. And if you are a Swiftie, or if you are a Taylor Swift fan, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift got engaged. And Charlie Kirk's opinion on this was, submit to your husband, Taylor. You're not in charge. Typical misogyny coming from the right. Don't ever let the right make you fooled into believing that they are about inclusion, because they're clearly not. And then we see that Trump installs a czar at DHS to oversee U.S. election integrity. It's not gerrymandering, folks. The White House is gearing up to use broader federal powers to shape the 2026 election in its favor. Going on to say, let me be blunt, DHS was created after 9/11 to protect the country, not rig its elections, but I worry that what the president is trying to do. And again, we're seeing this play out already with them trying to gerrymander certain districts. We're seeing them going after mail-in ballots. And there's even some rumors and speculation that he's going to post up the military at polling sites, which, by the way, would be clear intimidation. Clear intimidation, and something that should be absolutely disavowed. We also saw that Denmark summoned a top U.S. diplomat after the national broadcaster reported that at least 3 people with connections to President Donald Trump have been carrying out covert influence operations in Greenland. So remember, Donald Trump has been real quiet about Greenland and the Panama Canal and all those other things. It looks like he has still not been, he's still working on it, right? Because again, right now we're still seeing what it sounds like based on this report, is they're trying to influence Greenlanders to eventually give up their sovereignty. This is extremely alarming. I'm sorry, just call it what it is. But yeah. So then the next thing we have here is This resignation letter from the CDC this guy's putting out. Give me 1 second here. So then we had this right here. So the letter, this is a long letter. I don't want to read this entire thing. It'll bore you. But essentially what's going on right now is that from what I've understood from the CDC board is that there have been about 3 or 4 people that have resigned or some that have not resigned. And that is because of the fact that essentially, as you can read right here, this decision has not come easily as I deeply value the work at the CDC does in safeguarding public health, and I am proud of my contributions to that critical mission. However, after much contemplation and reflection on recent developments and perspectives brought to light by Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I find that my views and the views he and his staff have shared challenge my ability to continue my current role. While I hold immense respect for the institution and my colleagues, I believe that it is imperative to align my professional responsibilities to my system of ethics and my understanding of the science of infectious disease, immunology. In other words, RFK Jr.'s conspiracy theories are coming in and permeating through to the CDC. And you can see here, Mark S. Zaid said, Ab Lowell and I represent CDC Governor Director Susan Moneras. Contrary to government statements, Dr. Moneras has neither resigned nor yet been fired. She will not resign. And they've issued the following statement. When CDC Director Susan Moneras refused to rubber stamp unscientific, reckless directives and fire dedicated health experts, she chose protecting the public over serving a political agenda. In other words, guys, RFK Jr. is trying to reshape the CDC to fit his conspiracy theory narrative. It is absolutely insane to see what is happening right now. We also saw where MAGA got upset about a logo. We talked about this last week. The Cracker Barrel logo that was, again, the CEO being a woman. And Donald Trump chimed in on it, saying Cracker Barrel should go back to the old logo, admit a mistake based on customer response, and manage the company better than ever before. They got $1 billion worth of free publicity if they play the cards right. Very tricky to do, but a great opportunity. Have a major news conference today. Make Cracker Barrel a winner again. Remember, in just a short period of time, I made the United States of America the hottest country. And guess what? Cracker Barrel caved. Again, the left was not upset about this. It was the right, the woke right. The right is now woke, okay? And now all of a sudden they're saying go woke, go broke. No, the reality is that they never went woke. What went woke? What was woke about Cracker Barrel changing their logo? Nothing was woke about it. Let's be very clear about it. Nothing was woke about Cracker Barrel changing their logo. The only thing that they consider woke is that they had a female CEO. Yes, in today's day and age, they don't like the fact that a female is a CEO. We have reverted backwards and not forwards. We are going back to a time that is very, very, very dark. Mind you, there's been several people in this administration that have openly stated that they want to get rid of women's right to vote, or subtly said that, right? And so we'll get to this one in a second. I'm going to read the chat for a little bit. This is some more things here. Let's see. Food, but that is crazy for people to get mad at. Yeah. You guys are nuts. What's nuts about it, Tom Riddle? I'm an idiot. Well, thank you for the comment. I appreciate it. While you're delusional, nobody cares. They won't even do the performative girl boss feminism. What are you talking about, how to? MAGA got upset with change the name of a damn restaurant, but is okay with renaming the Gulf. Yeah, that's too, Zippy Link. That's a good point. Zippy Link, every time you come in here, you provide some of the best takes, right? They didn't get upset about changing the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Should have never let women vote. Well, okay, Tom's just coming right out with it. That's okay. And again, y'all are, going full mask off, and I appreciate you guys revealing you guys for who you are. Gulf of America is actually Gulf of Mexico, and I'm still stick to that. This is what I voted for. Yeah, okay. Again, it's easy to say that behind a keyboard. All right, let's continue on. So this is one where we might talk about it more a little bit. This is the Washington, D.C. thing. I forgot to move this around. Give me 1 second while I move this around. Yep, I got to move this back over here. All right. So let's talk about Donald Trump prosecuting the burning of the American flag. Let's go through this real quick, and it won't be very long. So Donald Trump said that Donald Trump signed an executive order talking about desecrating the American flag. I did a video on this. You can take a look at that. I go into it a little bit more, but not a whole lot. So the executive order says this. It talks about the great American flag. There's a lot of concerning stuff in here. saying it is a statement of contempt, hostility, and violence against our nation. The clearest possible expression of opposition to the political union that preserves our rights, liberty, and security. Listen to the framing of these words. They have already determined, the Supreme Court has already determined that burning the American flag is a constitutional right protected by the Constitution. Okay? But they want to say that you burning the flag is somehow offending and violence against our nation. And they're not using these words loosely. They're using it very specifically. The reason they're saying violence against our nation is because they want to try to paint a particular image of those who burn the American flag. That if you burn the American flag, you are so unpatriotic. Dare I say, they may even try to use this as a reason for certain extremist activities. But here's where it gets the meat and potatoes of the executive order. Let's dive into this real quick. The Attorney General shall prioritize the enforcement to the fullest extent possible of our nation's criminal and civil laws against acts of American flag desecration. I want you to focus on that word. Burning the American flag is desecration, but desecration is much broader than just burning the American flag. They then say that, and that violate applicable content neutral laws while causing harm unrelated to expression consistent with the First Amendment. This may include, but is not limited to, violent crimes, hate crimes, illegal discrimination against American citizens, or other violations of American civil rights and crimes against property and the peace, as well as conspiracies and attempt to violate and aiding and abetting others to violate such laws. They're saying, in other words, if a state or local official sees that someone is burning the American flag, that they should look at them for these potential crimes. But this is a problem. Namely, if not for the fact of burning the American flag, they would not be investigated for those particular secondary crimes. So let's dissect this. Currently, if you burn the American flag and you are somehow arrested for, say, disorderly conduct, you have no repercussions because what evidence do you have to suggest that you were arrested for burning the American flag? The only evidence you have to suggest you were arrested for burning the American flag is, guess what? Nothing. Because the officer would have to explicitly say something. But now Donald Trump has made it very clear that if you burn the American flag and you are charged with one of these particular crimes, secondary crimes, it was because you burned the American flag, which is, again, is a constitutionally protected form of free speech. By the way, guys, as you're coming in here with 254 people, make sure you hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. It pushes us further in the algorithm. Let's try to get to 100 likes. Right now, we're up to, I believe, 10 likes. Where are we at? 10 likes. Let's get up to 50 right now. Let's get to 50 here in about the next 30 minutes to an hour. All right. Letter B. In cases where the Department of Justice or another executive department or agency determines that an instance of American flag desecration may violate an applicable state or local law, such as open burning restrictions, disorderly conduct laws, or destruction of property laws, the agency shall refer the matter to the appropriate state or local authority for potential action. Again, more crimes for them to investigate for the act of burning the American flag. And it says section D, this is very important. I think this is one thing that gets kind of buried in here that people don't really know about. The Secretary of State, the Attorney General, and the Secretary of Homeland Security, acting within their respective authorities, shall deny, prohibit, terminate, or revoke visas, residence permits, naturalization proceedings, and other immigration benefits, or seek removal from the United States pursuant to federal law whenever there has been an appropriate determination that foreign nationals have engaged in American flag desecration activity under circumstances that permit the exercise of such remedies pursuant to federal law. Let's think about this for a minute. First of all, guess what? Because it's a constitutionally protected form of free speech, and I've looked this up, undocumented migrants can still burn the American flag. It is still a protected form of free speech. Just because you come to this country illegally, if that's how you want to use that terminology, you are still protected by the Constitution. But this is more problematic. And I would probably, if this was all that this was about burning the American flag, I might be so inclined to side with the right on some of this, except there's one issue with this. It's not about just burning the American flag. Let's actually take a look at what the statute says in regards to what desecration actually looks like. This is 18 U.S. Code 700, subsection 700. Desecration of the flag of the United States and penalties. I want you guys to read this and understand why they chose the word desecration. Whoever knowingly, give me 1 second here. Whoever knowingly mutilates the faces, physically defiles, burns, maintains on the floor or ground, or tramples upon any flag of the United States. I said that really quickly. Mutilates, defaces, like writing on the American flag, signing the American flag, like that. Physically defiles, burns, there's the burns, remember I told you, maintains on the floor or ground, or tramples upon. Hypothetically speaking, someone does a TikTok video. In the background, they're busy moving. The flag is touching the ground. Boom. Desecration of the American flag. This was not done accidentally. This was done on purpose. They wanted to make this terminology as broad as humanly possible because they want to go after undocumented migrants. That's what this is really about. They're not going to be able to punish American citizens, but they sure as hell are going to be able to deport undocumented migrants for desecrating the American flag. And you can see here, this is part of a bigger plan. I mentioned this before. If you look here, this was reported this past week. The Trump administration said Thursday it's reviewing more than 55 million people who have valid U.S. visas for any violations that could lead to deportation. So let's put two and two together. They're looking at 55 million people that are here on visas and looking for any violation. And now they pass this executive order saying that they are allowed to revoke visas for American flag desecration. I'm not someone to say that, Trump is big into 5D chess. Quite frankly, I don't think Donald Trump is the one pushing a lot of this stuff in terms of, him being able to even understand what's going on. He's being given an executive order without even understanding what's even in the executive order. But what I'm saying by this is that it's clear as day. They're trying to expand while simultaneously looking for reasons to deport. And they're going to use this as a reason to deport. Even though, keep in mind, desecrating the American flag is protected by the Constitution. But we all know how this happens, right? We saw this with Abrego Garcia, right? We saw this with Abrego Garcia where he got deported and it took several months before they were able to correct and rectify the issue. But, nobody loves to desecrate the American flag more than MAGA. I mean, we can just see in this picture alone, right? I mean, you can't really zoom in on this picture, but you can see this guy wearing the U.S. flag on a suit. This gentleman that looks like wearing some stars and maybe some stripes over here. But look at this big old hideous thing. Now, I want to go back and let's look at the statue here. Whoever knowingly mutilates the faces, physically defiles, burns, maintains on the floor or ground, or tramples upon any flag of the United States. That sure looks like defiling. That's certainly what that looks like. But if you still don't believe me, let's go and listen to the great Antonin Scalia, right? The great Antonin Scalia, who said, if I were king, I would not allow people to go out about burning the American flag. However, we have a First Amendment. I want you to read that. Listen to that quote again very carefully from Antonin Scalia. If I were king, I would not allow people to go about burning the American flag. However, we have a First Amendment right. So I want you guys to reflect on that. Donald Trump is trying to go after our First Amendment rights in some degrees. He's going after y'all's two-way rights. He's going after our due process rights. He wants to get rid of the 14th Amendment. Depending on who you talk to, and some in chat seem that they want to get rid of the right for women to vote. Do you not see it yet? You guys are stupid in the box of rocks thinking you're smarter than Trump. That's why you're all broke. Yeah, well, again, Mike Webb. And again, if you're so upset, then, you can, and you're so upset here, just you can go bye-bye. MAGA is garbage. MAGA isn't even about making America great. Increased costs, rights being trampled, and destroying the economy. 100% Zippy Link. Monthly Southwest border apprehensions drop below daily average under Biden administration. Yo. So again, if you look at Southwest border encounters, they are down under Trump. However, they're not at zero, which is what Trump has claimed it to be. So close, but not close enough. Democrats is trash. You should say are trash. You might need to go get an English book. I'm sure you support the English being the American language. Might need to go take an English class. Who supports a party that wants to control what someone can say? Who supports a party that wants to control what someone can say? I would say that that's the right wing. The right wing is not allowing you to be able to express your First Amendment rights. And we'll get more into that here in a bit about the First Amendment rights that Donald Trump is trampling on. If I were king, I would make everyone during a pandemic get a vaccine or be banned. I see. It's funny to me when Steve comes in here saying something like that, because for 1 minute, they sit there and say that this is communism. When someone makes you wear a mask or walk around with a little card, that's communism. But when Donald Trump puts the military in our streets, that is somehow not big government. What a bunch of freaking hypocrites. What a bunch of hypocrites. You guys can't see the log in your own eye, yet you still judge your neighbor's own. Americans don't even know what communism means. No, they certainly don't. They don't know. It's baffling me. The reason why they hold all of these exact opinions is because of their dear leader, Daddy Trump. I have it on my thumbnail for an exact reason, because they love to kiss the ring. They don't care about principles. They have no principles. The same Republican Party that I supported in 2012 and 2016, quite frankly, is no longer the same Republican Party. We see this all the time when people call Mitt Romney a rhino. Mitt Romney at one point was considered pretty far right. And now he's considered a Democrat. Why? Because the Republican Party has moved as far right as they possibly can. Hypocrite, you should be mad at the people who have been put in power and paid to do the job failed. Are you serious? Yes, I am serious. MAGA is full of a bunch of hypocrites that have no consistent principles. 1 minute they love small government. They cry about Kamala Harris and Commie Harris. But then they support when they put the mill. I remember when I would talk to some of these conservatives and say, why do we need the 2A? I want to be very clear when I preface this by saying I'm not saying take up arms against our government. I'm using this as an example. You can see where they sat there and made the argument for 2A because of a tyrannical government, because of big government. And I beg the question, I ask these people now, what is big government? If not what is happening right now, what is it? Operation Warp Speed was enacted by Trump. He is the father. Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's true too. Either you support Trump or you support the Constitution. You can't do both. You're 100% correct, Zipping. Hillary and Biden wanted to make flag burning illegal, and are they hypocrites? They are. Look, if they're the ones out there sitting there saying and criticizing this particular executive order, sure, they could be considered hypocrites. But I also didn't vote for Biden, and I definitely didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. So your little gotcha isn't a gotcha. And it's hilarious. You can't even own it. You want to say, well, what about Hillary? What about Biden? What about Trump? What about Trump? Trump is in office, isn't he? If you're upset with what Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden did, then necessarily you wouldn't, if you're principled, would be upset with what Donald Trump is doing, unless you're going to say, but it's different. Because that's exactly what happens. How do we break it to MAGA that they are in a cult? Mystic, I'm going to give you the unfortunate answer that you're not going to want to hear. I think anybody that is left and part of the MAGA movement, that is considering themselves part of the MAGA movement, are too far gone. These are the people that have been dug in so deep, they don't believe that Donald Trump can do anything wrong. I do think there may be still some moderate Republicans that are worth out trying to talk to and understanding and reasoning with. But I think at this point, there's a spectrum on the right. There's those who own it and say, I'm MAGA. There's those who sympathize with MAGA. And then there's those libertarians that conveniently always support Donald Trump's initiatives and very rarely, if ever at all, support any kind of leftist cause. I don't think there's really much of anything left to be said about the Republican Party. MAGA is a bunch of soulless, can't do anything but follow. Not a leader among them. Sure, Mantis, exactly. Taco Trump, Caesar. All right. So let's dive into this next story we've got going on here. This is, we're going to talk about some DC stuff here, okay? So Janine Pirro on Trump sending troops to Chicago. Tyranny is when you can't walk outside and go to dinner. Again, they're trying to fearmonger about people not going to dinner. They're not going to dinner right now. Now, I want to be very clear. So there's a couple of things about this. Okay. According to Open Table, restaurant reservations are down. Nobody wants to go out to a restaurant when you're the military parading through your streets. So again, tyranny is when you can't walk outside and go to a dinner. I don't think you can go to a dinner now. Now, there have been, I've tried looking into this and understanding where is Donald Trump getting this idea that people are visiting restaurants. Would it surprise you to know that Restaurant Week was this week? I think it was this week or last week. It was this week. So yeah, people are going back out to restaurants to some degree or another, but we'll get to that in a minute because guess what? National Guard is actually not doing a whole hell of a lot anymore now. But we'll get into that. Let's go to this. Now we have White House Special Assistant Lindsey Halligan on the troops Trump is sending into cities. I'm glad to hear that they're going to be armed. Yeah, this was a new revelation. So Friday, we saw that the National Guard was reportedly going to be armed and be given law enforcement duties. Namely, they were going to be using their service weapon. They were going to be using their handgun as well as their long rifle. That is what they were going to be equipped with. And they were officially armed as of Sunday. This is incredibly troublesome. And I've run through this hypothetical with a lot of conservatives, and it wouldn't surprise most of you guys, I'm sure, that they said, I don't care. I said, all right, so they're doing law enforcement duties. Law enforcement duties include executing search warrants. I said, would you be okay with a National Guard member or worse, a military member busting down people's doors, servicing warrants? And they said, well, if it's lawful, that's the response. If it's lawful, then sure. Remember I told you guys about big government? Yeah. Here's the real problem with this too. They have been given use of force authorization. What that essentially means, for anybody unaware, is basically they can use force up to and including, I'm going to use TikTok language, unaliving force. That's part of the use of force continuum. Could you imagine what that would do? It's almost like Trump is trying to do everything he possibly can to potentially invoke martial law. Now, I've talked about it last week on why I believe that Donald Trump is instituting all of these National Guard members. I think this has everything to do with sanctuary city policies. But we'll go through the stories and we'll get there. But you see, Trump says he's keeping D.C. safe by having the National Guard doing landscaping duties. Nothing but landscaping duties. And there's also them going around picking up trash. I think there's another video here I might have. I do not. Where they're picking up trash. All those people going up there that the Republicans are sending up to D.C. to keep it safe. Yeah. By the way, the crime stats were already on the decline, and we went over, I believe it was last week. The crime numbers are being misrepresented by Donald Trump because he believes that the D.C. police union is the one who put these stats out there. The same D.C. police union that's trying to get legislation passed. But there's no actual bottom line to assess where they're getting these numbers from. Who's reporting it? Also did some research. So when we look at, if you ever hear about this talking point about they were making up numbers, no, they were not. It was one commander that was relieved for allegations of fudging crime statistics. And that one commander was for one district out of 7 districts. 7 districts, 58 precincts. And when several, and if you go look at factcheck.org, you can go and see it. It's plain in the open. What they found out is when they showed this to experts, which by the way, is all stemmed from an NBC Washington article. When they went and talked to experts, they said that this falls in line with this looks just like it does in all across the country. And so it would not be out of the realm of possibility that these are accurate numbers. Also, if you go and look at FBI crime statistics, you can see that guess what? Total crime across the country is just down about 17% in general. So DC making up crime numbers is just, honestly, not really true. It's misleading at best. But anyways, you can see here, Major breaking news. A video is going viral showing a citizen arrested in Washington, D.C. after filming federal agents on public property and asking them to identify themselves. And you can see again, we saw. Are you fucking serious? Okay. That was a great spot to pull it in on the audio. But you can see here, he's filming these gentlemen. Just filming them. And you'll see where they kind of pounce on him here in a second. Hold on. Just recording them. And there they go. There they go. Going after somebody, simply recording. We also saw where it was announced today that Donald Trump is going to take over Union Station. This is the same Union Station, by the way, that Pete Hegseth and Stephen Miller went to and were heckled mercilessly. Now, what I predict is going on is by bringing in and taking over control of Union Station, that now becomes federal property, trying to quell protesters. That's exactly what that's about. We also found out today that the grand jury did not indict this individual for felonious assault, the sandwich guy that threw the sandwich at these members. And again, we can see where DC's court system is under tremendous strain amid Trump's crackdown on crime. A court spokesperson said that they desperately need help. Because here's the problem, okay? Let's hypothetically say that Donald Trump is going in and arresting all these individuals, okay? The problem you're going to have is you not fixing the overcrowding in a lot of these jails, a lot of these prisons. You're not going to fix that overcrowding. You're not you're not putting more money into the judicial system. So guess what? You're going to have overcrowding. It's going to be bursting at the seams. By the way, when you look at sheriff's departments across the country, most people don't realize this. Sheriff's departments also include deputies that are in the jails. So when they're understaffed on the cities, they're certainly understaffed in the jails. But I want you guys to listen to this from Kamala Harris, because I think everything that Kamala Harris predicted would come true is coming true. And I know you guys you MAGA love Kamala Harris, but you know what? Kamala Harris was right on a lot of things. Let's go ahead and play this clip.
And so after all these years, we know who Donald Trump is. He is someone who will stop at nothing to claim power for himself.
Kamala Harris was right.
And you don't have to take my word for it. I've said for a while now, watch his rallies. Listen to his words. He tells us who he is. And he tells us what he would do if he is elected president. So here tonight, I will show you one example of Donald Trump's worldview and intentions. Please roll the clip.
I'm telling you guys, Kamala Harris was the right choice.
The worst people are the enemies from within.
The enemy from within. Those people are more dangerous, the enemy from within, than Russia and China.
These people should be put in jail the way they talk about our judges and our justices. Now, if you had one really violent day, one rough hour, and I mean real rough.
I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have
Just listen to this now in hindsight. Kamala Harris was right.
some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military.
I want you to listen to that part again. That was incredibly important. Let's listen to that again. You ready?
And it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military.
The National Guard or the military. Huh. Almost like what he's doing right now is going in and putting in the military. Hold on one second, guys. the military or the National Guard, which is exactly what he's doing now.
So you heard his words. You heard his words coming from him. He's talking about the enemy within Pennsylvania. He's talking about the enemy within our country, Pennsylvania. He's talking about that he considers anyone who doesn't support him or who will not bend to his will an enemy of our country.
And this is exactly what happened. This is exactly what happened with the American flag desecration executive order. The American flag desecration order said anybody who burns the American flag is unpatriotic and it's violence against our country.
It's a serious issue. He is saying that he would use the military to go after them. Think about this. And we know who he would target. And we know who he would target because he has attacked them before. Journalists whose stories he doesn't like. Election officials who refuse to cheat.
Journalists, election officials. We'll get to the journalism. Just wait.
By filling extra votes and finding extra votes for him.
Gerrymandering. Sound familiar?
Judges who insist on following the law instead of bending to his will.
Remember, we just covered earlier where Alina Habba was saying that the DOJ is looking into the judge that ruled against her, going after judges.
This is among the reasons I believe so strongly that a second Trump term would be a huge risk for America and dangerous. Donald Trump is increasingly unstable and unhinged.
I just think it's crazy. I mean, you can see where she said this. And again, there's numerous clips out there from Kamala Harris. You can probably just type in Kamala Harris and find it. It's amazing to me to watch that now in hindsight, because again, everything she said was exactly correct. And again, I leave you with this, not leave you, but I say here, I'll end it with this on this topic. You can see where Trump said at his cabinet meeting, I have the right to do anything I want to do. I am the president of the United States. That is exactly what Kamala Harris said. That is exactly what Kamala Harris said he was going to do. He's growing increasingly unhinged and growing increasingly unstable. And now Donald Trump believes that he has the right to do anything he wants to do. You heard it from him himself. You heard it from him himself. It is incredibly concerning. The border czar never, ever went to her job site. I don't think you need to go to the border for a picture op, a photo op. I think, again, in our day and age of remote and everything else, I think you certainly can. And again, it wasn't her job, by the way, to go to the border. Her job was the Northern Triangle, which I'm trying to remember what it was: Guatemala, El Salvador, and another country. Trump doing this is recreating the Kansas City experiment. It didn't help then, it won't now. Are you ignorant or brain damaged? I think you are blocked. All right, let's go to the next one. I'm increasingly growing intolerable of this. So the next one we got here is, you can see where on the anniversary of Charlottesville, the man who helped organize that march tweeted this: 8 years ago, you were an extremist if you protest being replaced by immigrants. Now it's official White House policy. Never give up. Further concluding that this administration is moving further and further right. We also saw where Kilmar Obrego Garcia was scheduled to go to Uganda. Yes, this administration who refuses to admit that they were wrong. They said that they could not bring Obrego Garcia back, but they did. They said when he came back that he was not going to see the streets ever again, but he did. And now they're saying he's going to go to Uganda. But now a judge said, guess what? He can't be deported to Uganda. At this point, this man has been harassed so much that I definitely believe that this man is damn near deserving of, at minimum, citizenship. The weight of our justice system has been so heavily on this man that, quite frankly, he's deserving of citizenship. There is no remedy for this. I want to put this in perspective. I've seen numerous court cases, for example, where double jeopardy is not allowed in this country, but a prosecutor can prosecute an individual as much as they want, as long as they don't get a definitive verdict. So if they get a hung jury 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 times, they can try them all 10 times. I think that is a disservice to justice. I think at some point you have to let it go because you are fishing for a guilty verdict and you are no longer presumed innocent. And it's the same thing going on with Obrego Garcia. Obrego Garcia, who was charged, because I want to clarify this, he was charged. They tried to get him on human trafficking, but they couldn't get it to stick. So the best that they got him with was transporting undocumented migrants. Now, I want to make this very clear because it would sound like that's the case. It is not under the human trafficking code. What transporting undocumented migrants is as simple as saying that the person in your vehicle is an undocumented migrant. It does not mean that that person was coerced into your vehicle. It does not mean that that person is being transported for monetary gain or value. It just means that that person in your vehicle is essentially an undocumented migrant. It's no different than if your passenger were to have an open container. But they were only able to get that charge as an indictment, when all of the weight of the prosecutor is able to present the evidence. So again, when you have the weight of this DOJ coming down upon Obrego Garcia, I say, you know what? Let the damn man have citizenship at this point because it's a disgrace to our justice system. We also saw this. This will make some of you MAGA happy, unhappy and good. Top Florida official says Alligator Alcatraz will likely be empty within days, email shows. Alligator Alcatraz seems to be closing as a federal judge put a stop to further expansion of the immigration detention center built in the Florida Everglades. Womp, womp, womp. MAGA taking L after L after L after L. And anybody who didn't see the Stephen Miller clip where Stephen Miller was saying body after body after body, it was hilarious. Hey, by the way, guys, we're up to 45 likes. Please hit that like and subscribe notification bell. We only need 5 more to reach our goal of 50, and our stream goal is 100. So if you could hit that like, subscribe notification bell, that'd be absolutely appreciative of that. Thank you, Gloria, for that subscription. All right. On to Russia. Welker asked Lavrov, did Russia invade Ukraine? Lavrov said, Russia started special military operation. And Welker said, it's a yes or no question. Lavrov said, we started a special military operation. So again, he's not admitting that Russia invaded Ukraine. And then she was pushed a little bit. She pushed him a little more, saying Russia's Lavrov says no deal can be signed by Zelensky since he's illegitimate. We would need a very clear understanding by everybody that the person who's signing is legitimate. And then according to the Ukrainian constitution, Mr. Zelensky is not at the moment. According to the Ukrainian constitution, he is legitimate. And again, this is clear Russian propaganda. This is like super obvious Russian propaganda. But this administration is doing Russia's bidding. You can see here the reporter asked Witkoff, who is more responsible for keeping this war going, Russia or Ukraine? Witkoff said these are two tough sides here. You heard the president say he's disappointed in Russia and he's also disappointed in the Ukrainians. There should be one side that you are disappointed with, and that is Russia. Plain, Jane, and simple. I want to pose this to you. So Donald Trump met with Vladimir Putin last week in Alaska. A lot of people said when they saw the B-2 bomber going overhead of Putin. Give me 1 second. We saw where Vladimir Putin had the B-2 bomber go over his head. I want to propose what I believe that actually was. Now, under normal administrations, you would sit there and say that this was just some other. Hold on 1 second. Let me let the dog out. Under normal administrations, we might be so inclined to say that that was a show of force. But the reality of this is that this was not a show of force. It is my belief, when you think about what is actually going on with Donald Trump and how he fancies all of these entitled things. Oh, no. 1 second. Give me a second. I'm sorry, guys. Hold on. All right, we're back. Sorry, my dog had to go outside and then she went in. Okay. So what we know with Donald Trump and his agenda is that he loves to sit there and loves to show off his shiny new toys. It was not a power move. We saw, and again, I encourage anybody, when you sit there and say that what happened with Putin was a power move, then why did he roll out the red carpet for Putin? Why did he have the military get on their knees and make it nice and pretty for Putin? Why did they refer to Putin as His Excellency? No other context right there would show that Trump was trying to be a power move with Putin. In fact, he loved Putin there. He loved the spotlight. And compare that to Zelensky. Compare that to Zelensky and how he treated Zelensky. We had to have the EU leaders follow with Zelensky to go into the Oval Office to make sure that Trump did not berate Zelensky. Trump and this administration love Russia. Sorry, that's just the case of what's going on.
Own 10%.
So we also saw where Donald Trump took over a 10% stake in Intel, funded thanks to, well, let me read some of the chat because we've been going a little bit. I want to read some of the chat. He was showing Putin that he could take no box. He was not. High school thoughts, host, high school thoughts. No, these were not high school thoughts. We can look at Donald Trump's own high school take. Zelensky couldn't handle being in the office before, and that's why you got kicked out. Zelensky couldn't handle being in the office. No, I think Zelensky stood up for himself pretty damn well, given the fact that everybody in that White House was going after Zelensky when Zelensky deserved far more respect than he received as a first time. Putin bombed an American company in Ukraine the day after he had a meeting with. Yeah, that too, Bill. That's the other thing. Putin sat there to show. Here's the funny thing, right? Trump loves Putin. Putin knows that he can get away with whatever he wants with Donald Trump. And the show of disrespect when Donald Trump talked a big game. Oh, if Putin doesn't take the peace agreement, then big consequences. Guess what? No consequences. In fact, Putin went and bombed an American facility, electronics facility in Ukraine, and Trump did nothing about it. No sanctions, nothing. Absolutely nothing. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to keep moving on here. So as I said, Trump bought 10% of Intel. using CHIPS and Science Act funding to fund the bill. In the cabinet meeting, it was relayed to Trump, and this is very problematic. It was relayed to Trump in black and white, very clear in front of our faces that it was free, that we didn't pay a dime for the shares of Intel. Kid you not, true story. But guess what? We did. We spent all of our grant money for, well, not all of it for CHIPS Science, but we spent the CHIPS and Science Act grant money to acquire those stakes. We paid money for those shares. But they're trying now. You can see here, Brendan asks Mike Lawler, as a conservative, do you think the government should have ownership stakes in private companies? Mike Lawler says, generally speaking, no. I think what the president is seemingly trying to do is get a return on these tens of billions of dollars that are being invested by U.S. taxpayers into companies like Intel. And I posted this. Also, Mike Lawler, Zohran Mamdani's push for government-owned grocery stores is straight out of the Marxist playbook, and history shows exactly how the experiment ends. New Yorkers deserve solutions, not socialist fantasies. Hypocrisy, hypocrites, your typical hypocrites. And you can see CNBC said, so should we expect the U.S. government to be taking more equity stakes in businesses around the country? Kevin Hassett said, it's possible. Yeah, that's absolutely right. The government now is trying to acquire stakes in numerous companies. By the way, this is not the first time we'd heard about this. If you remember, they thought about trying to take stake in ownership in TikTok. Remember that? So it's socialist when Zohran Mamdani or the left does it, but when the right does it, it's not socialism, guys. It's not socialism. And as the economy is tanking, we see a lot of Republican representatives having to explain why prices are not going down. A constituent asked Representative Breachin, saying, can you tell me what specific bills we have passed or worked on that would lower grocery prices? And he said, ma'am, you were talking about things relative to the state level. You were mixing federal and state, even though if that's the case, then why did Donald Trump say that he could bring down grocery prices on day one? But that's not all. Donald Trump ramped up his rhetoric on India, ramped it up to the extent where he's now made good on his threat to double tariffs on imports from India to 50%. 50% for products coming from India. Guys, we are going to face inflation like we have never seen before. Inflation is a lagging indicator. It takes months to follow up, especially because a lot of these companies bought in with pre-tariff inventory levels. There's rumors and speculation out there that they are trying to time the market to know that Trump always chickens out. So they look for the moments when he chickens out to stock up on their inventory values. But the reality is it's going to come time to pay the Pied Piper. And companies love to do a few things. They either love to lay off their workers, which is certainly what's happening. We've already seen where the manufacturing sector is laying off workers. They'll either raise their prices. And there's one thing people forget about as well. They'll keep their prices the same, but they'll shrink their products. Shrinkflation. They'll shrink the size of their products. I've actually noticed this a bit when I've gotten my Lara bars. Lara bars used to be bigger, and you're kind of left wondering, like, man, this is like bite-sized. And you're like, what's going on? It's because guess what? They shrink their product, but they keep their prices high. So there's a couple of different ways that they handle these things. All right. So the next thing we have here was Modi refused Trump's calls 4 times in recent weeks, according to a German newspaper. We also saw where Modi got up in front of his parliament, and he actually said that Vance would consistently call him, trying to warn him that Pakistan, I believe it was Pakistan, was going to invade. And Modi was like, yeah, that's cool. Bye-bye. I got it handled. It's always great. Then we also have Trump making up facts out of thin air, saying that his approval rating is in the 70s. Except what is written and broadcast in the fake news, I now have the highest poll numbers I've ever had, some in the 60s and even 70s. They're not in the 60s and 70s. I don't know where he's getting this from. It might be with his supporters, but if that's from his supporters, that's pretty crazy. We also saw U.S. President Donald J. Trump said on Friday that national security and privacy concerns related to TikTok and his Chinese parent company ByteDance are highly overrated, and that he will continue extending the deadline for the popular video sharing platform until it's purchased by a company or group based in the United States in violation of the ban approved last year by Congress. This statement by the president follows last week's announcement that the White House had created its own account on TikTok. Let me talk about this. I am on TikTok. I love TikTok in the sense that I use it all the time. I used to not do that, but I do. But here's the reality. I don't care what I use it for. The reality is Congress said that you need to shut it down. But what Trump has done is extend the deadline, extend the deadline, extend the deadline, and continue to extend the deadline. You can't keep doing that. You have to abide by Congress's rulings. I would love nothing more than to be able to use TikTok for the next several years. Unfortunately, Congress has passed this legislation and Trump needs to abide by the legislation. So then we go here to Westmore, and Donald Trump was not too happy with Westmore. Okay, actually, let me real quick before we go on to this, I want to read chat. I want to get through some of these, click out of these stories here. All right. Americans have no image of communism. They have only the image of the Western powers have fed them. That's fair too. How to? Welcome in. Hate is the tie that binds the left. Hate is the tie that binds the right. The right is full of hatred, vitriol, and bigotry, and we'll get into that later. Deep state equals Freemasons. Deep state equals MAGA. Putin slapped the orange off Trump with the Epstein files to shut the EU up and the Zelensky up and to give back Ukraine to its owner, Russia. First of all, wait, Putin slapped the orange off Trump with the Epstein files to shut the EU up and the troll Zelensky. Okay, yeah, that's just false. Trump can't follow a law or any law to save his life or soul. Yep. Don't forget racism. That too, honest. Thank you for elaborating on that. Freemasons, the higher ranks, worship Satan. They want but depopulation. MAGA wants depopulation. MAGA wants to get rid of everybody. I think the numbers I saw were like 100 million. They want to get the population down to 100 million. They want to get rid of all the undocumented migrants from our country. They want to get rid of all the brown people from this country. No, the right isn't hateful. Just look at all the videos of these liberal protests. Do we want to pull up J6? Back to blue, law and order. Spare me. Spare me. All right. So Westmore said, the reason that I've asked the president to come and join us is because he seems to enjoy living in this blissful ignorance. These tropes and these 1980s scare tactics. While the president is spending his time from the Oval Office making jabs and attacks at us, there are people actually on the ground doing the work, namely law enforcement. And I want you guys to think about this. Donald Trump isn't thanking the law enforcement on the ground in DC. He's saying, everybody's thanking him. Everybody's thanking Donald Trump for DC. Throughout the entire cabinet meeting that happened, I believe it was yesterday, what we saw is every single cabinet member saying, because of you, Donald Trump, our streets are safer. Because of you. No. What happened to Back to Blue? What happened to our law enforcement? What happened to our National Guard? It's all about Donald Trump. It's not about the guys sitting on the streets doing their job. Forget them. But it gets worse. Westmore also said the year before I became the governor in 2022, Baltimore was averaging almost a homicide a day. I came in and I said I refuse to be a governor who just offers thoughts and prayers, so that the homicide rate in Maryland is down over 20%. We're seeing this time and time again. These Democrat cities that are overrun with all of this crime and everything else, it's not being overrun by crime. We're seeing crime is going down consistently in these Democrat-run cities. Now, I want to be very clear. The reason why Trump is targeting places like Baltimore, places like New York, places like Los Angeles, again, is because of the sanctuary city policies. It's not about crime. He wants to send the National Guard in to try to intimidate those officials to get rid of their sanctuary city policies. That's what the ultimate goal is here. Westmore also confirmed that he's considering retaliating against Republican gerrymandering by redrawing the maps of Maryland to eliminate the state's one Republican seat. This is a concerted effort by the Democrats because the Republicans decided to gerrymander Texas. So they are now going in and they're saying, you want to gerrymander Texas? We will start gerrymandering our states and get rid of your seats. The problem that Texas overplayed their hand on was that they're playing off the 2024 election numbers when Democrat turnout was relatively low. And what people don't realize is that Republicans do not turn out in midterms. Democrats do. So if you go off of a low Democrat turnout, you're not accounting for the high Democrat turnout. But it didn't change Donald Trump. Donald Trump said, I gave Westmore a lot of money to fix his demolished bridge. I will now have to rethink that decision. So Trump is now saying that he wants to rethink the idea of repairing that Maryland bridge. You'll remember, I think it was last year when the bridge collapsed because the ferry hit it, or the ship hit it. And now Trump, like he always does, withholds funding. This is a Trump intimidation tactic. The ways that Trump intimidates is he gives lawsuits. He threatens the DOJ investigation. He withholds federal funding, threatens to send in the National Guard into your streets. Or if you're a Republican, he'll threaten to try to primary you. These are Trump mob boss mentality tactics. That's all that this is. And also, Trump decided to go a step further, saying, did Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, lie about getting a Bronze Star? Two things here. One, it implies that Donald Trump is potentially trying to go after him for a criminal investigation. But as I said and numerous other people said, that's rich coming from Mr. Bone Spores, and Wes Moore also responded in that kind, saying President Bone Spurs will do anything to get out of walking, even if that means spouting off more lies about the progress we're making on public safety in Maryland. Hey, Donald, we can get you a golf cart if that makes things easier. Just let my team know. Burn. Donald Trump dodged the draft in Vietnam because he's claimed to have bone spurs, but nobody's been able to validate that. Nobody. So what we've seen is Donald Trump going after Wes Moore. He's trying to intimidate Wes Moore into giving into his policies. And Wes Moore's like, bro, we don't need you. Trump is a boss. He is not a boss. He's a child, a petulant child. The federal state has no right to come to my state. Well, Donald Trump thinks otherwise, unfortunately. He can walk up steps to get on a plane. He can walk up steps to get on a plane by the handrails. Have you seen him try to go up the steps on that on Air Force One? He has to like hold on for dear life. LOL, the world makes fun of sad little orange. Yeah. He's the president, Cope Harder. Unfortunately. Yeah. All right. So we talked about how Kamala Harris said that he's going to go after media. Well, here we go. This is how Trump's Sunday went. ABC and NBC should lose their license or pay hefty fees because their reporting is mean to him. Maryland should maybe lose bridge repair funds. We just went over that. And the feds should investigate Chris Christie for Bridgegate because he was mean to him. You can see these are all tweets that Donald Trump put out on Truth Social, just all saying that they should be investigated. Again, what I told you already. And then we see Fox News lose their mind at Gavin Newsom's MAGA-style merch. You can see here MAGA saying, Gavin Newsom said, soon MAGA will have a whole new meaning coming soon for your next boat parade. You are very welcome, Patriots. And Gunther Engelman said, this is exactly what a narcissist would post. Not seeing the implication there. You can also see where deranged Donald Trump says he'll investigate why NBC extended Seth Meyers' contract, claiming the late night host has the personality of an insecure child. Projection there first and foremost, but also, again, Donald Trump threatening to investigate media organizations. We also see where Donald Trump said George Soros and his wonderful radical left son should be charged with RICO because of their support of violent protests. I would love to see him present evidence for RICO charges for George Soros. This is hysterical. Furthermore, because as well, their idea from the right was that George Soros is getting involved in left-wing politics, but yet they forget about the log in their own eye with Elon Musk. Elon Musk was the wealthiest man on this planet and literally was in this administration's cabinet going into your personal records, and it was found out today that some of those personal records may have very well have been leaked. And now to this point here. We're at the White House monitoring situation in Minneapolis. Join us all for praying for the victims. So what happened in Minneapolis was absolutely tragic. A gunman ended up opening fire on a church full of children praying. Absolutely disgusting, absolutely tragic. And when we see from first of all, what J.D. Vance said about prayers, this is the typical Republican response. Thoughts and prayers. That's all we get from this administration. But we saw it came out that this suspect had filed to change their name when they were 17 years old. Thus, they are now painting this as a trans issue. Let's be very clear. This is not a trans issue. And we'll get into this now. But I want to go through some of these comments that we see from MAGA and conservatives showing their bigotry. Remember, they're all about inclusion until it's not inclusion. For the good of society, and especially for the good of the poor people who have fallen prey to this delusion, transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely. You know, that sounds an awful lot like a call to action. That sounds incredibly, deeply concerning language. Eradicated from public life entirely. And then we see here Representative Donald. This is not about guns. This is about mental health issues that the radical left refuses to acknowledge comes from their crazy. Now, see, anytime that there's a right-wing suspect, they say it's too soon to talk about this. It's too soon to talk about the suspect's ideologies. Let's focus on the children. Let's focus on the victims. Thoughts and prayers. But the moment it's someone they believe to be on the left, they go crazy about it. This is not about guns. Let me reframe what Byron Donald should be saying. This is not about guns. This is not about mental health issues. This is not about the radical left, the radical right. This is about an insane gunman who absolutely did a horrific act. And I hope is burning in hell. I want to be very clear about that. But if we're going to point fingers at which ideology is which ideology, we can go into this. I'm going to be very careful on what I show here. But I encourage anybody to go to this tweet right here. Okay? I don't know what I can show on stream, and I want to be very careful with what I show on stream. But let's just say that this individual, the suspect, ended up posting numerous videos on YouTube. He went on to show some of the weapons that he had used, and on those weapons were far right ideologies, various memes, certain racist language that start with the N word and letter. There was also several types of what are called Groyper messaging on those particular firearms. This individual was a twisted, sick individual. I don't know if I would say that they are far right, but it certainly seems that way based on everything that is in this video. But again, what we need to do, and I want to address this because I think it is abundantly important to address, is that when we talk about this particular issue that took place, is that what we need to look at is that we need to look at pragmatic solutions. And this is where I'll call out my own side to a certain extent. I don't mean and want to lose anybody here, but understand what I'm about to say. I understand how deeply emotional this is because it affects me as a father. But we have to use pragmatic solutions. I understand if the idea right now is that as we're sitting here, that Donald Trump is a tyrannical president, then it would almost feel as if you would not want to get rid of the same thing that you could use to defend yourself. So now, as it stands, I'm not for banning all guns. I am open to the discussion. Right now, what I do stand for, and I want to be very clear before I lose most of you guys, I am for red flag laws. I am for mental health screenings. as it stands right now, I am for safekeeping of firearms, holding parents accountable, securing our schools, not in the way of arming teachers, not in the way of arming, putting more security guards with screening through the door. What I mean by securing our schools is secure doors, rooms with a secure room to be able to be put into in case there is an emergency. Certain devices, safety devices that would allow for barring of those doors. I'd love funding for that. It's a two-pronged approach. You prevent the targets from being targets, and you try to get those, you try to hold those accountable, right? So after this incident occurs, if it's found out that this individual's parents were the ones who gave this individual the firearms, they should be fully held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. Red flag laws would help in case there is somebody who shows troubling signs like this individual has shown clearly. And it's coming out now that there was potentially message boards where this individual went on saying that what he was going to do is what he's going to do. There should be red flag laws for that. And again, mental health screenings, because there are individuals that are able to obtain these firearms that are mentally troubled people. Oh, and loopholes. If there are any gun show loopholes that are out there, yeah, close them up. Work on pragmatic solutions. If you are a leftist and you are advocating for banning of firearms, that is not a pragmatic solution. It is a understandable solution based on what is happening, a very emotional response, and I understand that. But we need to work towards pragmatic solutions. Move the needle, if you will, in fact. But you cannot start sitting here saying you want to ban certain guns. That's just not going to work in our today's day and age. I say that respectfully. I think it's okay, by the way, as someone who is on the left, for us to disagree. We are not a monolith. We should be able to disagree on some things like this. But I want my child protected just like you guys want your children protected. Dan Fry saying there should be more safeguards. Yeah. Spartacus said, agree, Vince. I'm a bird and deer hunter and I don't have a problem with any of that. Yeah. I think too that the problem is that a lot of people don't understand when they look at particular, hold on one second, guys. So I think the issue that we have is when we look at something like that, a lot of people on the left, and I understand people that are maybe on the far left understand that when they sit there and they understand, or when they look at it, they think that firearms are a uniquely right-wing issue. It's not really a uniquely right-wing issue. I think that what we have going on in our society right now, and listen, we talk about some of the things that Donald Trump does that we could take advantage of. Pam Bondi and Donald Trump, believe it or not, have actually talked about being open to red flag laws. This is the one moment where I think that even though Donald Trump is an absolutely atrocious human being in a lot of ways, I think this is an opportunity where Democrats could totally take advantage of his weaknesses. And one of those being red flag laws. Trump is for it. Pam Bondi is for it. Take advantage of it. Now, I want to be very clear, though. Someone mentioned this when I was talking to somebody in Discord about this. The problem that I have with that, right, is that I have a feeling that if they were to try to pass any kind of red flag laws under their premises, they would try to label transgenderism as a mental health issue. So I would not obviously not be okay with that. So I think that this is going to be a very careful thing. We'll see how it plays out. But this is an absolute big tragedy that took place in our country today. It's absolutely atrocious. As someone who is a father, it made me sick to my stomach. But we have to make sure we put emotions aside and then we look for pragmatic solutions. Don't work on solutions that are not going to ever come to fruition. That's going to do more harm than it'll ever do good. Dan Fry said Trump doesn't want the kids to get shot. He can't. Dark humor, respect it though, Dan. I really hope we can have another party that really cares about country. Well, the thing is that right now the Democratic Party, I believe, is truly for the country. And I think there's a lot of people like me, myself, by the way, who was a former Republican that cares about this country deeply. I've heard of other Republicans who have moved over to the Democratic Party. It's those people that you're going to find that are probably the most patriotic individuals you've seen. The left is the patriotic party now. Sorry, I'm going to call it like I see it. It was actually quite funny when I was engaging with somebody and talking with them. I was talking to some people and I was saying, look, they were like, oh yeah, the right loves inclusion. I'm like, okay, what about undocumented migrants? Well, that's different. What about transgender people? Oh, that's different. Yeah, they're not the party of inclusion. They're the party of bigotry. There's one party in this country right now that would absolutely take in anybody as they are, as Jesus did himself. That's the Democratic Party. Now, MAGA is a tough pill to swallow, but as someone who myself, if MAGA were to convert over to being the Democratic Party, to the Democratic Party, if someone were in the MAGA Party and they want to come over to the left, hey, come to the left. I have no problem with that. Love thy neighbor, right? Transgender is already being labeled a mental illness in the medical field. Sorry, your feelings hurt. Your feelings hurt more than mine. Open borders makes you a patriot, right? No one said open borders. In fact, Thomas, if you would actually ask me my opinion on the border, I think we ought to have more technology at our border. Dare I say we need a border wall, not the one that Donald Trump is building, but we do need a wall. We need a strong presence at the border. That would be one way to do it. The second thing we would need to do is we would need to work on trying to get more immigration officials in our country. We need to work on asylum cases. I would say that anybody who is here in the country already, we need to try to do an expedited background check to try to get them through. In other words, you close down the border, which is not really closing it down, but you try to lock it down, right? To where essentially those who come in are promptly picked up. And again, if they have a valid asylum claim, let them go through the asylum courts, right? Punish them for that particular crime of crossing the border, if you will. I mean, if you want to do that, I think it's silly to punish them for it in terms of a fine, but essentially that's what it is. But we need more immigration officials here to push through. I think people who are here, I think predominantly a vast majority of the individuals that are here are contributing members of society. They pay their taxes, they go to work, they come home, they pay their property taxes if they're even owning a home, which by the way, yes, undocumented migrants can own a home if they own a car. Then they're paying taxes on that vehicle to the state because via inspections and everything else. They're contributing to society. They're contributing to your own neighborhood. Well, maybe not your neighborhood if you live in an ivory tower, but all right, guys. Well, look, it's already 9:04. I'm getting winded, which is why I'm talking a little more softer than I normally would. This one's been a little bit not of a traditional this has not been a traditional stream, just in the sense that I usually have like clean topics. So I might have to record a video tomorrow. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Please hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. Look, we got 76 likes that I can tell right now. It's never too late to hit that like button. And I will see you guys on Friday at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. We'll see what news happens there. But other than that, guys, I appreciate every single one of you guys that have come in here and supported me. We're still putting out really good numbers. So I really appreciate every single one of you guys. You make the stream worth it every single time. You have a great night, guys, and I will see you guys